Welcome to this bonus episode of the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Hall, president of WeatherGuard Lightning Tech, and I'm here with Wind Power Labs' Joel Saxum. And Joel, you and I were talking about all the different robot options on the blade repair side. And as spring gets closer, there's a lot of research going into these companies. And we thought it's a good time to highlight them and discuss where their strengths are and maybe where their weaknesses are. And if you're in the market for like a leading edge repair, what are some of the things you should consider from these robot companies?
Yeah, absolutely. As it's February, right? So in most of the northern hemisphere or the further southern hemisphere, right now is the time everybody's getting geared up for the spring to let loose and repair season to start. If you're one of those lucky companies or lucky asset owners that gets to work on their turbines year round, you don't have that pain. But I know all of my counterparts in the industry and friends that I talk to are deep into the tender process. And even at this point in time, right, it's February 10th today. So the tenders they're coming out, right? They're coming out with decisions because you're starting to get, if you haven't got your tender in back in, December or January, it's getting slim pickings for blade techs. So like we talk about a lot on the show, as the blade technician pool it's hard to build it. It gets smaller and smaller as the global fleet grows. So all of these companies that are starting to develop robots, for whether it's just for leading edge repair or something that has classically been a technician job, like the Valero guys doing the LPS measurements, and other than that, you've got to send guys on ropes to do that, and it becomes very expensive and very time consuming. You can't get that much done. Now doing it with a drone makes a huge difference. So a lot of guys out there, or a lot of companies out there, coming up with new solutions, and I think there's some that are a little bit earlier in the game and a little bit more developed and have been out in the field getting some time up on blades. And those guys are just like when we started the first autonomous drones out there. There was a lot of people kind of working on it, and then of course, like the people that we know over at Sky Specs, they jumped out and started just hammering away once they had a really good solution, and they quickly became the top of the heap as far as inspection numbers. I think we're going to start to see that here soon with the robots as well.
Yes. So I think the industry leader right now in terms of at least public relations and maybe even contracts is Aeronis, be my guess. They're all over the world, and their robots do many different things, right? They have done LPS measurements. They've made a lot of LPS measurements. They've done some repairs. They've done some blade cleaning, tower cleaning. So they have a multi-purpose robot, where the other solutions tend to be more focused. Let's just kind of break it down a little bit. So if I wanted to do a leading edge repair, what are my options today?
So your options today, leading edge repair, would be Aeronis, of course. They're limited to just the leading edge. And of course, they've got some other robots. They got a bunch in their fleet, right? They could do internal inspections. They have little crawlers and stuff. But so leading edge, you've got Aeronis. You've got Robotics. The Vestas group or the Vestas funded group of blade robots that just came out from their, I don't know what you want to call that one, incubator or whatever. They're doing some LEP stuff as well, but they're brand new, right? Like Robotics, I know, has been around for 3 years. Aeronis a little bit longer than that even, but I think Robotics has got a little bit of the corner of the market as far as been around a little bit longer doing LEP stuff. But Aeronis has got more time up tower on the robots. Other than that, you have, there's the Dutch group, AirTub, that's building some things, but I don't think they're quite commercially ready, right? They're in the testing phases. Robotics, same thing. I think their first iteration of a robot is going to be leading edge repair, but I think they're more in the early stages. Blade Bug is they're more towards inspection and NDT, a fantastic NDT delivery tool, right? Because it can pinpoint where you want to go, but they're not into the the LEP repair plays. So Robotics, Aeronis are your two really right now from what I can see in the market.
And products they're using to apply to the blades, they differ on Aeronis has chosen Axo Noble, and Robotics is using Technos, right? So they're just two different manufacturers of repair material. if you have a particular blade, is there any reason why either one of those would not work? Does it matter all that much?
It's all in rigging, right? So how quick they can move and how easily they can move up. They do it a little bit differently, right? Like the robotics robot uses suction to stick to the side of the blade, whereas the Aronis robot uses more. And I'm not 100% sure on these ones, so don't crucify me, Danish Cruise and team. But they have the taglines with the automatic kind of motors that help move it. So either one of them, if you're using, the first question that they're going to ask is what exact model of turbine are you using? What's the tower height? Because they need to know the geometry of the way the nacelle fits with the spinner, fits with the hub, fits with the blades. Because I know like Rope Robotics, when they're rigging on certain platforms, it's really easy. Boom, you connect to the D rings up on the top of the nacelle, throw the lines over the hub, comes down, and you shoot right up. Some of the other ones are a little bit more difficult. You have to come underneath or poke a hole in the nacelle or something like that sort. So it's all in how the rigging goes. And then of course, because all of them have, they're coming from the ground up. Don't believe, and don't quote me on this, but I don't believe any of them have really specifically nailed down a process for offshore that is spot on.
No. Not yet.
Because you need...
Not yet. It's still a prototype. And what I've seen is still a prototype. And we don't have a lot of wind turbines in the States, so you and I wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe in the North Sea, there's a lot of activity there. They may have a lot more knowledge of that.
Yeah.
We just haven't seen it.
Yeah. I know the Rope Robotics crew right now as well. Like they started as an LEP robot with that techno solution, but they're a part of a project that's, I think, funded by the EU, maybe EU DPR or something like that, but some foundation. But there's a bunch of other players in it that they're actually going to be doing like a robot that can do scarfed repairs. And they're using they've got an AI group in there to help them with that as well. So they're taking their robot that does leading edge right now and expanding its, solutions, its offerings. Like Aronis did the same thing. Aronis can apply the phase break 9 ice, anti-icing coating with theirs. They can do all kinds of different things.
Right. So the anti-ice, de-ice coating.
Mm-hmm.
The only one I've seen do that so far is Aronis in terms of an application robot. Otherwise, it's a technician-based system.
Yep.
Right. So if we're talking about blade structural repairs, what are your options right now?
Yeah.
Sort of non-leading edge stuff. Is it all just focused on leading edge in terms of repair?
As it sits right now, commercially available, I think it's all leading edge. The only thing else on the list that could probably help as well, like I know the Rope Robotics solution, because they use that Technoblade 9000. It's a filler and LEP and like all in one, right? So they can do leading edge. If you can put your fist through it, they can't do it, of course, right? Then you're structural, and you need to get some technicians up there to fix that. But if you're above like the surface mat, you can get those guys to fill in and LEP coat quite a bit, like a surprising amount. When you show them some inspection images, you'd be surprised at what they can actually take on. Martin and Christine and the team over there. Another thing to think about here, no matter who you engage with, is just this, is knowing what their capabilities are. Like if you bring the Aronis team on site, man, they can check your LPS, they can clean the tower, clean the blades, possibly put some LEP on, do a de-icing coating. Like yes, to an operator to mobilize one team to do all of that stuff, that's pretty amazing, right? When it comes to structural repairs, blade bug is your answer to get into those a little bit, right? So if you want to know, hey, we've got a bad repair here, but we don't, or we have a bunch of turbines that we need to check this certain thing on, they can get up there up tower and do some NDT looks as well, a bit faster probably than some rope access guys can. So they can help in that, but they can't do the repair itself.
I want to switch gears a little bit and talk to lightning protection systems and what is offered today. We talk a lot about LPS systems need to be measured, and in some parts of the world it's required. You need to measure it. In the States, not so much, but we're finding mostly Aronis has published data where like 20% of the LPS systems are not functional. The resistance is too high or it's broken internally. It seems to be a good number of those. What are the options there in terms of LPS? Who could you offer to get out there besides a technician to go measure a bunch of LPS systems.
Well, I know that you've seen a lot. If you follow LinkedIn or any press releases and stuff right now, the Valero drone, they've been out doing some LPS measurements, and they've been partnering up with SkySpecs. I mean, SkySpecs is a massive pool of clients, right? So it's a great vehicle for Valero to get in there and do it. But they've got a really cool, if you're into drone technology, the way that their drone works is kind of nothing like you've ever seen before. The whole body of the drone can rotate as well as the rotors themselves. So then you can get at certain angles to angles of incidence, as you call it, like, right? So if you're measuring an NDT or something on a tank, they can go in at any angle and get a contact measurement. So that leads directly to, okay, no matter what angle the blade is at, we can get in there and get a good contact measurement. So they're doing LPS via drone. That's an option. I think that's probably the quickest one, right? Aronis has got the LPS measuring robot, but they've got to rig up with the taglines and all that stuff. So it's if you have Aronis on site doing some other things, it's probably fantastic. Hey, just swap that modular head out, do the LPS measurements while you're up there. But I think Valero is probably the fastest one. On this list that we're staring at, I could see Bladebug possibly offering that in the future, but I don't think they do right now.
So that would make sense for Bladebug to do it, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But in all these measurements, I prefer, just because I'm an electrical engineer, I prefer to do a four-point measurement instead of the 2-point measurement. So a 4-point measurement takes the measurement leads and all the meter and accuracies out of the picture, and you get a real accurate resistance value for the down conductor and all the connections inside the blade. Aronis is definitely 4-point. I've watched that robot work. I did do a double check on the Valero system. It actually is a 4-point system.
Oh, there you go.
So Valero and Aronis are using a 4-point system, and that's good.
Not to be missed here as well, Alan, is we're talking robots. So, we're more focusing on robotics rather than drones here, but internal inspections. So whether it's with a cage drone, whether it's with a crawler or something of that sort. So when the Wind Power Lab side, we do the cage drone thing and then do the analysis of it. But we also use all kinds of other things to talk with the Ronas on some stuff as well. But visually, you can look internally a lot and see what's going on with the LPS system, right? We've seen a ton of them, old like the GE15s, where they just have like an aluminum bar. Well, that blade, the blades flex, right? So if you have a bar in there, eventually over time, boop, they pop connections, and you see a lot of them. It's really surprising how many open circuits we actually do find doing internal inspections on LPS systems without even doing an actual electrical test.
And then the last one I want to hit on here is ultrasonic inspection of the composite structure, which is going to become a big player just because the types of failures we're seeing on blades, and especially when we get offshore. Doing ultrasound on a blade is not the easiest thing in the world to do. No. So if you can automate it via a robot, it makes a lot of sense. So what are your options there today? Well,
Force Technology is a Danish company, and Force Technology I mean, they've been around a long time. They've been doing stuff, aerospace, oil and gas, pipelines, all the above. They're a big NDT company. They put out a lot of good products. We've used them in the past at Wind Power Lab to do some RCA stuff, but they're working on a robotic solution to be able to go up tower as well. I'm not sure along the development stage where they're actually at with it, but I know they're working on it. Otherwise, Bladebug as well, right? If you need to do NDT up tower with a robot today, call Chris and Stacy from Bladebug, and they can get you up there. They're using a system which is really cool. We've dove into this one before as well. It's the Dolphatech system, NDT system. And if you want to know more about the actual Dolphatech system, Bladebug guys aren't the answer, right? You call the actual NDT company, but they've done it to the point where they put the robot up on the tower, had the NDT basically box and head modularly doing measurements, and remotely connected to an NDT expert off site. So you can get because NDT experts are very difficult to come by that are certified and are good at their job and know what they're looking at, especially in blades, because in blades with composites, you're all the different layers, then you're into carbon, then you're into balsa, then you're into foam, and you're into all these different things, and it's hard to get a baseline. If you know anything about NDT or UT testing in the audience here, you know that you can't or it's not that you can't. It's difficult to understand exactly what you're looking at unless you have something to baseline test it off of. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're testing steel, you want to get the same kind of steel than is an inch thick, and you test your probe beforehand and go, okay, now we're calibrated. This is an inch thick. We can go to work, and then we can see the differences. So in composites, it's very difficult to do that. So that's why it's great to have someone that is, and because of in a blade, the composite structure changes from inch to inch, right? It's different.
Yes.
Everywhere. Like if you can put your arms out and lay it on a blade, the composite structure is going to be different from arm to tip to finger to finger. So if you have a really good expert that you can dial into while you're taking the test, it's an amazing solution. So Bladebug has done that with Dolphatech, where they have downsized the stuff going up tower to just put basically the transducer head and what they call their black box. And, their secret sauce inside of it. And then it feeds back to either on the ground with an NDT tech on the ground and someone else running the robot, or you can actually, offsite remotely. So those are your solutions right now that I know of that we've been talking to.
So in terms of, scheduling some of these robot companies, how far do you think they're out in time? If I had a blade I need some LPS measurements, or a farm I needed some LPS measurements on, how far out in time am I talking about, just for scheduling purposes?
Well, I know that Aronis, with part of their push, or not push, with their newfound capital as well, the 38 or 39 million that they got this fall, part of that plan, I think, was to ramp up with the capability of the of the robots. So it was to get more in the fleet. I know Rope Robotics as well. Rope Robotics right now, I think, has got 10 complete systems that they can mobilize around the world. And they're in the midst of growing as well. So it's, a lot of people are looking at, because this is early stage technology, right? You're still kind of, let's do a trial, let's take a peek at it. So like, I don't know if there's any massive campaigns amongst them. I don't know if we would have to contact them, but I would say if you wanted to right now, this summer, get one of these systems up on Blade to either LPS system check or clean a tower, or have Rope Robotics do some LEP, or Bladebug do some NDT, or even like the new Vestas group do something for you.
Right.
I say that one might be a little bit more difficult, because I'm thinking Vestas is going to tie that thing up internally. They're Blade robots, because they've of course got a lot of things to maintain in the world. I would say that if you contact these guys in the next few weeks, they would all be grateful to get out there this spring or early summer to at least get a trial going and show you what their capabilities are. I think that gets us into another point too, Alan, that I always like to touch on here is it's difficult to go to the field with robotics. So,
yes,
my past life was a lot of subsea engineering, which is full of new robotic technology every week. If you're into robots and you haven't looked at anything that's going subsea right now, check it out. It's so cool. Just go Gemini ROV from Technip FMC. Look at that thing and the technology in it. It's wildly amazing. But that transfer to go from academic funded building a robot to actually performing at scale in the field is not a hurdle to be dismissed. Right? You can have a fantastic team, fantastic engineers, but now you've got to take those people and get trained up people to go to the field and mobilized around the world to do these things. So that means if you're a robotics engineer and you've been working in a lab and you're out of school, you're a couple of years out of school, and you've been doing these things 9 to 5 and maybe some late nights doing some testing. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you're going to Oklahoma for the next 2 months and you're going to be underneath a wind turbine. Like that's a big difference, right? So it's difficult to transfer that and all the things that come with it, right? It's not just the idea of like, oh yeah, we're going to take our robot and go to the field. Now you've got to have an HSE plan. Now you've got to have vehicle inspections. Now you've got to have all these things. Like it's not trivial. So kudos to the guys who have made it. Like I've personally worked with Rope Robotics in the field, and those guys work their asses off. They want to succeed. They're good engineers. They're good at what they do. Any issues with robots that popped up, I mean, because the things are going to happen. And they're on it. They were working all night to get these things back up and running for the morning. And they successfully completed some campaigns for us. I say to anybody that's entertaining this stuff, go to the field, send some people to the field with when you're doing your trials, when you're doing your tests. Give these guys some breathing room, but also help them along because this is the future of the market. And in my opinion, it's like when drones started becoming mainstream, or when they were just barely babies. Everybody's kind of, I don't know about this drone technology. And I was walking around preaching to everybody like, it's like a train, either get on board or get run over by it because it's going to happen. And it did, and it is. Drones are everywhere now, right? And every day you see a new capability for them, whether it's in the wind industry or in the construction industry or Amazon dropping packages at your front door or whatever. I'll tell you this one. There is a place in Minnesota that delivers beer to ice fishermen with a drone. So if you're out ice fishing on the lake in the wintertime, you call up the bar and say, I need a 6-pack. And here comes a drone will come out and drop it to you on the ice. But with the shortage of technicians, like it's going to be a thing. So if also on the other side of it, if I was a technician and I was mildly interested at all in robots or coding or anything tech-wise, IT, if I was a gamer, anything like that, I would be calling up these companies. I'd be digging in. I'd be trying to figure some of this stuff out myself because it'd be a cool thing to be a part of in the future. It'll be in high demand. It's going to be.
Well, this has been a really good piece, Joel, and I appreciate you data dumping on us because there's just so much out there in terms of robots and activity. And if you're new to this and you haven't been up close to it, there's just a lot to process. So you're definitely right. And robots are going to become the future to do some of these routine repairs and maybe some of the more difficult inspections. Robots are going that way. And it's time gets on the internet, check some of these companies out, gives them a call and feel them out a little bit. See if you can use them on your next project.
Absolutely.